Let's see if I see the number popping up in a moment. And we are live. Welcome, guys. We've got some roar. So welcome, guys. Welcome to Mortlake. Hi, Katie. Hi, Tish. Welcome, Joanne. Welcome, everyone that I did not greet already. And just a bit of housekeeping as usual before we start. You've got the chat. Feel free to ask me any questions you might have. I might know or I might not know, but I'll try. And if you are watching live, if you want to make sure you are live and you are all caught up, you want to check at the bottom of the stream, you have a red line. If you see a bit of gray there, you are not live. You might be a few seconds or a few minutes delayed. So if you want to make sure you are live, you want to move the cursor and be all the way to the right to make sure you do not see any gray. If you're watching on replay, you should see a lot of gray. That's completely normal. Anyway, don't know me, you're very welcome. So I'm Nathalie. I'm sure you would have already spotted my accent. I'm French originally and I guide in London. And today we are in Mortlake. So I'm right here by the River Thames on a beautiful Sunday. And the tide is down at the moment. The Thames River is tidal. It goes up and down following the sea levels. HTP is asking if I have the super chat. Not quite yet. I need to get a few more hours of watch time before to be able to get tips through Google. So YouTube is Google. So maybe in a couple of months. For now, if you wanted to give me a tip, you'd have to go through my Buy Me a Coffee or my PayPal. I have posted a link at the top of the chat. It should be pinned up there. Thank you for asking. Anyway, so we are in the south of the Thames, and we are in the west of London. So it's quite pricey over here. To give you an idea, we are just above Richmond. Mortlake, I know the name sounds like there might be a dark story behind the name, because mort or mort in French or Latin, it's dead. So Mortlake, you'd think there might be some cadaver story behind the name, but no, it's actually named after a little stream. You know, the River Thames used to have some lost rivers in London, and apparently in the Mort one, that's where they used to fish salmon and other fish. So not a very dark story, I'm afraid. And we are here because I wanted to show you, welcome Hélène, I wanted to show you a couple of graveyards. We have some of, we've got probably the most unique grave in the country. So that's where we're heading to now. But for now, let me show you a little plaque here. This is the site where a gentleman called John Dee used to live. John Dee, he was a magician and a mathematician. He was a man of science. He was the official magician and scientific advisor of Queen Elizabeth I. Queen Elizabeth I, she often lived around here in Richmond. Well, she changed. You know those, the royals, they used to change palaces quite often because of course they did not have a sewage system. So, you know, when you have hundreds of people at court feasting and partying and eating for a while, then basically they used those latrines, but you had a lot of poo around the palaces, so they had to move every few weeks. But she was often here in Richmond, and she often came to visit John Dee. I'll tell you a bit more about John in a moment, but you'll see the sign, it says Tapestry Court. There's also a little plaque here for the tapestry. That is because we used to have a massive tapestry workshop here. If you went to Hampton Court or any of those palaces and you see the amazing tapestries on the wall, very often they would have been produced right here. It used to be the Dutch in Antwerp and those type of cities that used to produce the best tapestry, but then eventually they started doing it here as well. Yes, Kurt, I'm getting to that. Don't go ahead of me, Kurt, please. I'm getting there. And the tapestry, they were well, they used to produce them here because of the humidity of the river. That was quite good to relax the canvases. So a lot of those amazing tapestry today you'll see in the V&A, for example. And let me cross over. So yeah, let's get back to John Dee. He was indeed living here. And you'd have to understand that at the time, you know, today, no worries, Kurt. Today we are very much polarized. You know, you've got religion, you've got science, you've got magic, very different activities, really. But at the time, the border between magic and science was not that straight. You know, in the 16th century, there were some invisible magical forces that ruled the world, because, you know, at the time they did not know about gravity, they did not know about you know, epidemics or viruses and electricity, all those forces that we cannot see but that today we know about. So for them, magic, there was actually high magic and low magic. High magic was trying to understand the forces of nature, you know, that was almost like a science. Low magic was people trying to bring you misfortune, people trying to, put a curse on you. And Dee was really interested into all those forces, but for them it was a science at the time. He was a mathematician. He believed that mathematics was the language of God. And in a way, it is. The mathematics does rule the world. And Elizabeth hired him as his personal scientific advisor because he had been able to predict the death of Mary I. Well, asking anyone when the monarch is dying, that's treason. But she did, look at those carving here, she did ask him, and he became quite close to Queen Elizabeth I. She used his services quite a lot. Eventually, though, he fell out of favor with the Queen. This is St. Mary the Virgin, by the way. This is from 1543. So this church was built exactly at the time of the Reformation. So this is a Church of England church that has never been a Catholic church. We're heading to the Catholic Church in a moment. So John Dee fell out of favor with the Queen at the same time as he met another black magician, Edward Kelly. Kelly was very interested into the occult. He was also an alchemist. He was looking for the philosopher's stone. And he was missing the top of his hairs because he had been accused of, basically bringing a corpse back to life. So he was a very shady character, and he looked into a crystal ball. You know, it's exactly the image of the magician that you'd have today. Let me show you a photo of John Dee, actually, not a photo, a portrait, so you can see what he looked like. It's quite the classical magician we'll see today. And with Kelly, let's say they went into the dark side, and the little angels, you know, people were convinced there were a lot of little entities, angels, demons, and you could speak to them. Those little angels, they actually told Dee and Kelly. Kelly was the one that had most of the sighting. Dee did not really see anything into the crystal ball. He told them they had to go to see Rodolphe II, the Holy Empire emperor. And he actually told Rudolph II that he was under some bad influences from demons, and they had to listen to him. And Rudolph II was actually interested because they claimed to be alchemists. They could make some gold for him. And that's at that point, Kurt was talking about the Enochian language. So that is when Dee discovered, discovered or made up, it depends how you see things, but he discovered a language called Enochian. It is a language that doesn't look like it comes from anywhere. It has a grammar, it has everything you'd expect from a language. Some professional, some people think there are some similarities with Hebrew, they believe that was the language of the angels, and then still at that point they're still looking into the crystal bowl, and there's a naked angel that appeared. Look at that grave here. There's a naked angel that appeared to Kelly, and he said to Kelly that to access this knowledge, they had to swap wife. Kelly and Dee would have to basically have sex with the other wife's partner. Today we probably don't see how bad it was, but for them, they were, at the time religion was everywhere. And if you committed adultery, well, you'd go to hell, So they were ready, Dee was ready to risk everything, risk his eternal life for the pursuit of knowledge. So, quite an incredible character, really. So they did it. They swapped wives. The wives, of course, they didn't want to go for it, but they kind of had to because of the dynamic between male and female at the time. And then nothing happened. They did all that for nothing. They didn't access any specific knowledge. Well, Kelly at that point did claim that he was able to finally transform metal into gold, and there are some records that claim that he did, and actually Kelly dropped Dee and he went to work straight for Rudolph II, the Holy Emperor, and Dee came back here to Mortlake, very poor. His house here was completely ravaged. People had stolen all his books. He is the one that came up with the idea of a public library. He had an amazing collection of books, one of the largest in the country, really. And when he came back to Mortlake, he was completely destitute. And we believe he's buried here. There's no headstones. He probably never had a headstone because he was completely destitute when he died anyway. And there's no record of his burial anyway. So, but historians do believe he's here. There's actually 2 records of his death. He died in 1608 and in 1609. Who knows? So he would have been about 81, but we don't even know the exact date of his passing. And so yeah, very interesting character. And there was a painting, let me see if I can find a bit of shade to show you the painting. A famous painting that's actually, it's Victorian, it's been painting 200 years later. But that is here, it's meant to happen here in Mortlake. So that's Dee there performing magic in front of Queen Elizabeth II, the first, sorry. And very recently, in 2016, actually, they did X-ray on the painting, and I don't know if you can see at the bottom. There's a few skulls. Let me show you. There we go. So we're not too sure why. It's probably because whoever commissioned the painting did not like the skulls. But who knows? it was probably a bit too much, so then they painted over them. Anyway, so that was the Church of England, the Saint Mary the Virgin. We're heading to the Catholic Church, Saint Mary Magdalene. And just so you know, there was a little bit of a coronation party earlier, so it might be a little bit awkward. I might have to go right in between the tables to access the graveyard, but we'll see. Finger crossed. They might be done by now. Look at those amazing little cottages. And so we're heading to see Richard Burton's grave. We used to call him Richard Burton, but not to confuse with the Welsh actors. We'll call him Richard Francis Burton. He was an explorer. He was a Victorian explorer. He was actually British, but he did not spend that much time in Britain. He was born in Torquay in the south of England, and he spoke 29 languages. So that's, and plus 11 dialects. So he qualifies as, we've got a term actually for those guys, is what we call a hyper polyglot. I didn't know there was a name for it, but yeah, there's actually a list online of all the hyper polyglots. Actually, Queen Elizabeth I, she was maybe not a hyper, but she was a super polyglot. She did speak quite a few languages. And so he actually went to Oxford to study, but he was expelled. And then he was like, stuff it, I'll join the army. Well, not the army. He joined an army, the East India Company. So the East India Company, it's basically a company. It's a company that was given a royal charter in the year 1600 actually. It's actually Queen Elizabeth I that gave the company a royal charter. And do you know what? Do you know who had the idea of the British Empire? It's actually John Dee, the magician. He's the one that named it the British Empire at the time of Queen Elizabeth I. And so anyway, Burton joined the East India Company. It is a company that's very controversial because it basically ruled over countries. That they had to develop an army. They kind of had to because of piracy, you know, because they dealt with very expensive spices, you know, coming from Asia. And you know, when Britain lost the American colonies, they kind of switched their interest towards the Indian Peninsula, and the East India Company was kind of ruling India. And you know, the British wanted to rule India, but they did not really try to understand their cultures. Burton did. So for the many years he was in India, you know, he was never actually with his colleagues. He was never with the other British officers. He was with the locals, especially the ladies. But yeah, and he, well, actually, not only the ladies. At some point, when he was in India, one of his commanding officers was a bit worried that some of the men there, the East India Company men, spent a bit too much time into the gay brothels. So they sent Burton to investigate, to see what was happening in there. So Burton had a bit, he investigated maybe a little bit too deep. So he had the reputation of being gay, but that's probably unfair. He was a very curious man, and he was frustrated by Victorian moral code and you know, the prudish attitude. So he did study a lot sex and the sexual practices, and he actually translated the Kama Sutra, would you believe? Not only did he translate it, but he added some little comments. He cared a lot about female orgasm. He believed that female had to be a bit warmed up before the act. But imagine for Victorian society, that was a bit like, ooh, too titillating. And actually, when he was in Goa, I swear I'm not making up those stories. I mean, it's just amazing. He had a little crush on a nun in a convent in Goa, the St. Monica convent. And I don't know how far the relation developed between the two, but one night he decided to go and kidnap her. So he asked his friend to come with him to help him get the nun out of the convent. So they went in the middle of the night, they entered the nun's bedroom, and he kind of enveloped her into a linen, like a bed sheet, and they took her away all the way to the port. When they reached the port, they realized they had taken the wrong nun. They had taken the Mother Superior. So not a bit of a fiasco.
Are you trying to record me?
No, sir, I'm recording myself, unless
okay.
you really want to be on camera. Anyway, I'm just gonna pause the story for now because I have to cross a little party here. We'll go straight to the graveyard. That's, I believe, a bit of a coronation party they had.
Is it live on Facebook?
Not on Facebook, sir, YouTube. And there we are. Let me flip this around. I just didn't want to put people on camera. So this is the beautiful Saint Mary Magdalene. So it is a Catholic church. And let's go into the graveyard. So yeah, Burton actually in India he caught cholera and also a bad eye infection. So he went back to Europe to time to heal himself, and that's when he met his future wife, Isabel Arundel. They didn't get married quite yet, but that's how he met her, and she was very much into him, at least from day one. He probably was not the type of guy that would have a single relationship, monogamous, but yeah. And then he went back for his travels. He was actually commissioned by the Royal Geographical Society to go and explore Mecca. So he actually went undercover as a born Muslim into Saudi Arabia to go into Mecca. Extremely dangerous affair. No white man had been into Mecca. Well, no non-born Muslim at least. He circumcised himself because that was the easiest way to get caught, you know, if you had to get naked for any reason. Let me show you what he looked like. Where are you, Burton? There he is. So that's Burton as Burton. And let me show you what he looked like when he became Abdullah. There he is. So that's his undercover persona. And he was very good. Well, he spoke Arabic, you know, he spoke so many languages, and he had been studying Islam for a while. He had been studying many religions actually, but he had been practicing Sufism back in India. So he would have been extremely knowledgeable to pass as a Muslim for so many months. Some believe that he had actually secretly converted to Islam. We don't think that's true, but we don't know. And he's done it. So he went all the way to Mecca with all these his sketchbooks and his writing, even just carrying those sketchbooks and those little notes, where that was extremely dangerous, you know, because he would have been executed. You know, if he was found out, he would have been executed. That's for sure. So he managed that, and then he was commissioned to go and find the source of the Nile. The source of the Nile had been a big debate for many centuries because we did not know where the Nile started. So he went with another guy called John Dee to explore Black Africa. Apparently in Black Africa he struggled a bit more with the languages, and of course he couldn't pass as a, you know, he couldn't pretend to be local because he was not black. And that was a very risky and an amazing exploration. There's a movie about it. It's called what is it called? Mountains of the Moon, with Speak is being played by Ian Glenn, you know, the guy from Game of Thrones. And Isabel, she's an amazing character. I mean, she deserves a tour of her own, really. But Isabel, she's played by Fiona Shaw, which is quite cool. I didn't even recognize her when I saw the movie, because she was so young. And so they went to explore to find the source of the Nile, and it was very difficult. They had some. They were attacked a few times, and both of them actually got some eye infections that were terrible. They were blinded for weeks, and they went with some locals as well too. We've got an aircraft going on his way to Heathrow there. Well, I'm guessing he's going to Heathrow. And so yeah, they went to explore the source of the Nile, and then actually Burton was very unwell, and Speke went a bit further, and he found Lake Victoria. He named it after Queen Victoria, and he found out that was the source of the Nile. He did not actually do enough exploration to prove it, and he ran back straight to England, leaving Burton behind. That was actually a big mistake that Burton did, to stay behind, because Speke went back to London, he gave a lot of lectures and everything, and he actually completely dismissed Burton. He said he was scared, and he did not, you know, he was always worried and whatever. And so of course Burton was extremely disappointed, and at that point Speke had an accident, an accident or suicide, we don't know, but he basically had a shooting accident. He was carrying a gun, going hunting. He loved hunting, and as he had to go over a little barrier, he shot himself. So officially it is an accident, but because of the timing and because of his fight with Burton, some believe that it might have been a suicide. We will never know. And then the next years of Burton's life, it's actually a little bit mysterious. He went to America. We believe he might have actually been spying. He went to America, he went from cities to cities, and he actually studied the Mormon religion. He also studied Native American sign language, and he might have been actually collecting some form of intelligence to pass on to the British government, because we're just before the Civil War. So we think, although he never admitted being a spy, we think it is possible. And I never actually came all the way down here. Usually it's closed, I believe, down there. So that's quite cool. Then he became a diplomat, and he was always such a funny man. He used to write a lot of manuscripts. I mean, he's written so much over the course of his career. And apparently, when he was a diplomat in Trieste, he always carried with him a manuscript, and he knew that people might be a little bit nosy, so he often had a little bit of rubbish on the front page. So he used to carry his manuscript with him, and apparently in Trieste he had one. So you'd open the first page and you'll read "The History of Farting." Yes, you've heard this right. The history of farting. Because he knew people were going to be a bit noisy, and they were like, oh, what is he working on? And then they'll be like, okay. Oh, I've got a cat friend just there. Don't know if you can see it. So yeah, and when he passed, Isabel was a little bit vilified. She did burn. Oh, what? You're so beautiful, my love. She did burn a lot of his manuscripts to preserve his reputation or to preserve hers. We don't know. So yeah, and she claimed that he converted to Catholicism. So that's why he's buried here. Wow. Do you want to come? We're going to go and see Burton. Come. No? You're so cute. So yeah, and he's buried here. His family did not want to. His family did not want him to be buried here. They actually wanted him to be buried in Westminster Abbey, but meow. Can I touch you? Yeah. And he's buried here. His family actually did not attend the funeral because they were not happy with the location. And let me show you his grave. He's right here. It's one of the weirdest graves in the country because it is in the shape of an Arabic tent in a Catholic cemetery. So that's already interesting on its own. It's actually Isabel that had it designed, and you'll see quite a lot of Arabic style, like those little moons on the sun, and it's meant to represent one of the tents that they used through their travels. And let me show you the front. Isabel used to have nonsense seance, Kurt is saying. She was also an animals' rights defender, apparently, Isabel, which was not obvious in Victorian times. You know, animals' rights, they were like, yeah, right, what about minerals' rights? Yeah. Anyway, so that's the little plaque. But the most intriguing about this grave, it's not actually the front, it is the back. Let me take you to the back. You'll see there's a little surprise. There's a little staircase here, so you can actually climb up and take a look. Let me climb. Bear with me one sec, because it's not actually easy to climb with one hand. I might take a while. There we go. And if I manage to cover the fun with, oh no, the sun is a bit down now, so it's easier than it was earlier. I'm just gonna cover the fun for the, so that's Burton here on the right. So you can actually see into the mausoleum. So that's quite amazing, really. And if you've got good eyes, you might be able to see some very Arabic symbols, like there's a hand of Fatima, and it is a little bit unusual for a grave in a Catholic cemetery. You've donated to help with the mausoleum. What do you mean, Kurt? Did you help with the refurbishment or something? Yeah, I'm glad the sun is a bit down, because earlier, I came an hour earlier, it was hard to see because the sun was right reflecting. Oh, interesting, Kurt. So that's Isabel on the left-hand side here. Up. And I'm just gonna go down. Bear with me again. Up. I'm glad we could see, because last time I did this tour, it's some of you might remember that's when it was snowing in I think in January, and there were a lot of ice, little snowflakes or ice flakes inside behind the glass, so we could actually see anything. Right, let me give you another shot of the church, and let me know if you have any questions for me. That's gonna be the end of the tour. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Kurt. And let me show you my face again. So thank you very much for coming today. Thanks, Rose. let me know if you have any question related to the tour, or even if it's not related. With those YouTube tours, I prefer to do the catch-up after the tour than before the tour, because you know, we've got access to all that data and we can see when people stop watching the video. And I've noticed last time when I did the Victorian murder by prescription, I did connect a few minutes early to catch up with you guys, and the views were like, bleh! So I think it's better to catch up at the end, because otherwise I might lose some viewers. Thanks, Helen. Oh, thank you, Abdul. And thanks everyone that left a tip as well. I don't, you know, if you buy me a coffee or anything, I don't see it live, so I cannot really thank you live, but make sure you know you are very much appreciated. Oh, the door was sealed in the 70s. Oh, vandalism, yeah, it happens a lot in those mausoleums. We have, well, there's also people going to steal, steal the lead or steal anything. I was chatting to one of the volunteers at Brookwood Cemetery, and apparently people even steal skulls. So yeah. Did I have fun with Leonie yesterday? Yeah, so for the ones that don't know, we tried to go to the coronation yesterday. I tried to go into Hyde Park to see it under the big screens. That's what I did with the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II. That was actually quite good. But yesterday it was raining so bad, and it was very busy. And you had those, it was like a sea of umbrellas, so I couldn't even see the screens because I'm not too tall. So we gave up fairly quickly. But then we found a nice pub with a TV, and because the pub opened at 12, we were there just the first ones in. So we actually watched it on TV in the pub. That was fun as well. I did see the aircraft though, because at some point we are in the pub and the TV turns off, so I run outside and the aircraft were right above our head. Yeah, it's terrible when I don't understand why anyone would vandalize a grave. And I'll be scared of karma anyway, you know, like, you know, I don't understand why anyone would do that. Cool. And if you want to see a bit more of me, next Sunday we're heading to Bermondsey. We'll talk about Catherine Eddowes. So she's the last one of the 5 Ripper victims that I've not covered yet in my tours. So we'll do that on Sunday. I think it's 8 p.m. UK time. And if you do have any questions about YouTube, and I know some people are still adapting, of course, to a new platform. So if you do have any questions, don't be shy. Do ask us. I've got a Facebook group called Nathalie My Guide. If you do have any question, any tech question about YouTube, feel free to ask them on that group, because we can help each other. Even if I don't have the answer, some people might. So yeah, don't be shy. Let us know. Did Burton had kids? Well, he might have. I mean, he had so many girlfriends. He might have had. He had a lot of adventures. So he probably has some that he doesn't know about. To give you an idea, when he was a bit younger, before Isabel, he used to see a lot of girls, and one of them actually wrote to him. They sent him a letter. She said, "Captain Burton, as a mother, I feel like it is my duty to inquire, what are your intentions towards my daughter?" And Burton replied in the letter, "I'm sorry, ma'am, I have to say strictly dishonorable." So yes, we can imagine that he might have had a few that he doesn't know about. Tish, I don't think you'd have to wait for a week. I'm still experimenting. I don't know. This tour I scheduled 3 days ahead because of the weather. I want to go back to West Norwood because of the cherry blossom. I'd like to do it this week because we might still have a bit of cherry blossom. So I might do one on Wednesday. I still don't know whether it's because with YouTube there were so many emails of, not with YouTube, with Hego there were so many emails of tours to book in the future. So for me it was interesting to book a month ahead because I'll get many more bookings. With YouTube I don't think it's worth the trouble, so I might schedule last minute depending on the forecast. Today was meant to be very rainy, but actually we've been very lucky. Let me see if I've missed any more questions. No, I don't think there's any more questions, so I'm gonna get going. Thank you very much for coming today. If you guys don't subscribe to me yet on YouTube, you might want to subscribe just to make sure you don't miss out on the fun next time. Oh, thank you, Lynn. I might post a few more of those Hego replays. The thing is, they're not great content for YouTube because there's a lot of photos that we cannot see that I would have posted in the chat and stuff. But the tours that I probably won't do again because they were one-off or they were far away, I might be posting them on YouTube as a normal video. Thank you, Barbara. Thanks everyone for coming. Thank you very much everyone that was able to leave a little tip as well. It's very much appreciated. And hopefully I'll see some of you next Sunday, and I might schedule one more before that. And I'll be restarting the Monopoly tours as well. So so keep an eye. I might be doing one this week. Let's see. Anyway, have a good coronation weekend. Enjoy the rest of your day or the rest of your evening, whatever time it is for you, wherever you are in the world. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.